دكتور.
وعليكم السلام.
Okay, so this is the first actual lecture for this growth and development, where we will study about the anatomy of the male and female reproductive system. So these are the objectives related to this topic, that is describe the structure of different components and function of the reproductive system in both males and female. Then explain the major differences between male and female reproductive system. Then describe the adaptation of each system to suit its function. So to begin with, we'll talk about the male reproductive system, then we'll go to the female reproductive system. So the male reproductive system components will be divided into primary sex organs, then the reproductive tract, then we have the accessory sex glands, and then the external genitalia. So the primary sex organ, the most important organ for the in case of the male reproductive system, will be the testis. Singular is testis, and the plural, when it is including both, then it is called as testis. With instead of I, it will be E. This is plural and this is singular. Okay, so these are the testes here on either side. Okay, then this is the primary sex organ in case of male. Coming to the reproductive tract, which will carry the sperms which are produced in the testes, that includes the epidermis. This is the epidermis. Then we have the vas deferens. Vas deferens. This is called as long tube. This is called as vas deferens, which is also called as ductus deferens. Then we have the spermatic cord. So this is the spermatic cord, including here is the testis. There is the vas deferens along with other structures. Together, this is called a spermatic cord. Then we have accessory sex glands. What do you mean by accessory? Which will assist, which are additional glands. Okay, which are those? One is the prostate gland. Here we can see this is the prostate. Then we have the seminal vesicles. These are the seminal vesicles. And then we have the bulbourethral glands, small glands here. These are also called as the corpus gland or the bulbourethral gland. These are present here. Then finally, the external genitalia, which include the penis. So these are some of the components of the male reproductive system. The primary organ is testis. Then the reproductive tract includes the epidermis, vas deferens, and spermatic cord. Then we have the accessory glands, three important glands: prostate, seminal vesicles, and the bulbourethral gland. And finally, we have the external genitalia, which is called as the penis. Now coming to the testis. So here you can see this is the testis within a bag. This is called as the scrotum. Skinny bag, that is called a scrotum. So these are in pairs. They are paired because they are both on the right and left side. So they are called as paired, and they are almond shaped glands or oval shaped gonads. Okay, so they are called as gonads, male and female gonads. Okay, that are suspended in the scrotum by the spermatic cord. So these testes are suspended in the scrotum. This is the scrotum, as I said. This is the skinny bag, which is called a scrotum, and they are suspended by this is the spermatic cord, which include the vas deferens, and there are many other structures, the veins, arteries, nerves, everything. So together they are present in a long cord-like structure called as the spermatic cord. The total volume of this testis is almost 20 to 25 ml, and the length is almost 4 to 5 centimeters long. The length, because it is oval in shape, the length is 4 to 5 centimeters long, and the weight is very less, almost 10 to 14 grams. 10 to 14 grams. That is the weight of the testis, each testis. Even though it is a very small gland and the weight is very less, but it has very important functions. So what are those? One is the spermatogenesis. What do you mean by spermatogenesis? Genesis means production. Okay, spermatogenesis means, so it is production of the sperms. That is called as spermatogenesis. So the sperms are produced within the testis. Along with this main function of spermatogenesis, it also helps in the production of a hormone. Okay, so this Testis also acts as like a endocrine gland, producing a hormone called as androgen, okay, which is the most important androgen. That is the testosterone, okay, which will give the male features to the male, like growing of beard, mustache, the girth of the person, everything. Okay, so this is called as the testosterone. Then going to the bag within which this testis is present. Here you can see on either side, these are the paired organs on either side, and they are present within this bag called as the scrotum. This is the bag, skinny bag called as the scrotum. The scrotum is a cutaneous pouch. Cutaneous means skin. Cutaneous pouch of loose skin and superficial fascia. So there is loose skin and the superficial fascia, which contains the testis and the parts of the spermatic cord, which contains the testis on either side, as well as part of this is the spermatic cord on either side. It is divided on its surface into two lateral portions by a ridge or raphe. If you see here, in the middle there is a septum or a ridge or a raphe, which will divide it into two pouches. Even though it is a single bag, but it is divided into two halves by this raphe or ridge. Okay, so it will have two cavities within that. The left scrotum is slightly lower than the right. If you observe, the left scrotum will be the left scrotum as well as even the left testis will be slightly lower compared to the right side. This is the normal position. Okay. Coming to the function of the scrotum, what is the function? It houses and protects the testis. So the scrotum will house the testis. It will keep the testis within itself, as well as it also protects slightly in some way the testis. But the main function will be it regulates the testicular temperature. The testis, as you know, the spermatogenesis takes place at a lower level, a lower temperature, body temperature than the body temperature. It is at a lower level than the body temperature. So that's why the testis are outside the body, but within the scrotum. So whenever the temperature lowers down, then the scrotum will pull the testis upwards and it will bring it towards the body so that the temperature can be raised. And if there is increase in the temperature, then the scrotum will lose down so that the testis will go down and it is within the air and it will be hanging and it will cool down the testicular temperature. So this is how it regulates the testicular temperature, which is very important for the spermatogenesis. Now coming to the internal structure of the testis. So what we can see under the naked eyes, not under the microscope, but under the naked eyes or a hand lens. Okay, what we see that we'll discuss. What is seen under the microscope that will be covered in the histology. So what can be seen by the naked eyes as well as with the hand lens that can be studied here. Okay, so the internal structure of the testis, if you cut it, this is how it looks like. It will show fibrous septa extending from the capsule, dividing the testis into 200 to 300 lobules. Okay, if you see here, so whole of this is the testis, and there are septas now. If you see here, there are septas, septum. Okay, this is one septum, the second septum, like this. Many septums are there. So which will divide the whole of the testis into the space between the two septum. This is called a lobule. The space between the two septum. This is one lobule, this is one lobule, this is one lobule, like this. Here one lobule, like this. Okay, so this will divide, the fibrous septa will divide the whole of the testis into lobule. So how many lobules are there in each testis? Almost 200 to 300 lobules. Average is almost 250 lobules in each testis. So again, now coming to each lobule, within each lobule contains 1 to 3 seminiferous tubules. There are long tubes here, coiled, highly coiled tubes. If you can see here, these are the yellowish colored structures. These are nothing but long tubes called as seminiferous tubules. There are 1 to 3 in each lobule. So there are 200 to 300 lobules, that is average of 250 lobules. So if you multiply by 3, so there will be almost 750 seminiferous tubules. Okay. And if you take the average of this 1 to 3, it is 2. So it will be 2 into 250, it will be 500. Or approximately, it should be at least average of 500 lobules within each of the testes. Even though the testis is very small, within that there will be almost 500 seminiferous lobules and 250 lobules and 500 seminiferous tubules. So this seminiferous tubule, each is almost 60 centimeters coiled tube. It is a very long tube, as I said, almost 60 centimeters in an average, almost 60 centimeters, but it is kept in a very small area. This is because of the highly coiling of this tube. So it is highly coiled, so that's why even though it is 60 centimeters, it can be kept in a very small area. Okay, so these are the sites of spermatogenesis. These seminiferous tubules are the sites of the spermatogenesis. In the histology, again, you will see in detail how the spermatogenesis will be taking place within the seminiferous tubule. If you take a section of this seminiferous tubule and see under the microscope, then you can see the different stages of the spermatogenesis. In between the seminiferous tubule lie the interstitial cells of Leydig. In between the seminiferous tubule, outside there might be some cells called as the interstitial cells of Leydig. What are they? Why they are important? Because they secrete the male hormone called as the testosterone. So the seminiferous tubules will produce the sperms, and the interstitial cells of Leydig, which are present outside the seminiferous tubules, in between the seminiferous tubules, they will secrete the hormone testosterone, male hormone. Okay. So all these seminiferous tubules will go here and they all form a network that is called as rete testis. Rete testis is called as the rete testis here. All the seminiferous tubules go and open here and they form a network. So that is called as rete testis. Sperms travel through the testis from the tubules. So they will be, once they are produced here, they will be traveling through these tubules and through a network of ducts called as the rete testis. Here they come and form a network through which the sperms have to travel. So this is called as the rete testis. So it is nothing but the network of seminiferous tubules or ducts called as the rete testis, and this will be connecting the testis to the, this is the epididymis. Epididymis. Now coming to the blood supply of the testis, the blood supply of the testis is by the testicular artery. If you see here, so this is the abdominal aorta. So this is a branch from the abdominal aorta. This is called as the testicular artery on either side. If you see here, it is coming directly from the abdominal aorta, because the testis initially they will be produced here in the abdomen. Later, during before the birth, they will descend downwards. That we will study in the later stages in other courses. Okay, so right now in the urogenital system, at that time you'll study how it will descend downwards. But now you should know that it is produced in the abdomen and then it has moved into the scrotum, so it will carry the blood supply from the abdominal aorta. Okay, so that is the testicular artery, arterial supply from the testicular artery. But the venous drainage will initially, there will be a plexus of veins. If you see here, there will be around the testis as well as here also in the scrotum or in the even the spermatic cord also. So this plexus of veins is called as the tympaniform plexus. Tympaniform plexus. They play a very important role in the regulation of the temperature of the testis. So this is called as the tympaniform plexus of veins, which form a plexus around the testis as well as the spermatic cord, and they will drain on the right side and left side. It is different. Arteries, both arteries will start, right and left start from the abdominal aorta. But in case of venous drainage, on the right side it will drain into the inferior vena cava, but on the left side it drains into the renal vein. This is the kidney, which is also called as renal. So this is the renal vein. It will drain into a renal vein, then into the inferior vena cava. So there is difference between the venous drainage on the right side and the left side. This is clinically very important because this vein will be draining at right angle. So this side is more prone for the backflow of blood, and that leads to a condition called as the varicose vein. Varicose vein. So the condition is called as varicocele. Varicocele, and it is more common on the left side because of this drainage. Okay, so peculiar. So on the right and left side there is a difference. So the right vein the testicular vein drains into the inferior vena cava, but the left testicular vein drains into the left renal vein. Okay. Coming to the lymphatic drainage, it will be into the testicular group of lymph nodes. Okay, so there will be lymph nodes which will go and they drain into the lumbar or para-aortic group of lymph nodes. They just beside the artery, there will be group of lymph nodes called as the para-aortic. Para means beside, the aorta. This is the aorta. So beside the aorta, para-aortic group of lymph nodes. And the scrotum, penis, and previous lymphatic drainage will be into the terminally to terminate in the superficial inguinal gluca. But the testis will drain inside, and the penis, previous, and scrotum will drain outside into the superficial inguinal group of lymph nodes. Okay. Now coming to the next structure, that is called as the epidermis. This is the testis here, if you can see here. So these are the septas, and these are the lobules within which there are the seminiferous tubule, highly coiled tubes, which will open into the retate testis, and from retate testis now they are opening as efferent ductules into a large structure called as the epidermis. So epidermis, it is a single coiled tube. This is also a single coiled tube, a highly coiled tube. Again, this is also a single tube, highly coiled, almost 6 meters long. So it is 6 meters long, but it is kept in a very small area. Again, just like that of the seminiferous tubule, because it is highly coiled and it can be easily kept in a small area. Okay, so it is 6 meters long, and the site is the location located on the superior and posterior margin of the testis. So this is the testis, and it is behind superior and posterior margin of the testis. Coming to the parts of the epidermis, it has three parts. One is called as the head, or also called as caput. Caput means head. Then we have the body, corpus. Corpus is also called as the body or the corpus epidermis. Then this is called as the tail. Tail is also called as cauda epidermis. Okay, so it has three parts: the head, body, and the tail. The head will receive the retate testis, different ductules from the testis. So if you can see here from the retate testis, the head will receive efferent ductules through which the sperms, which are produced in these seminiferous tubules, will pass into the epidermis. Okay. Then the tail is continuous with the vas deferens. If you see here, this is the tail. It will continue as the ductus deferens, or it is also called as the vas deferens. Both are same. Now coming to the epidermis, what is the function of the epidermis? Why it is present here? Okay, one is it secretes and absorbs the nourishing fluid which is required for the sperm. So it will be secreting as well as absorbing the excessive nourishing fluid. So it will be providing the nutrition for the sperms. Then it also recycles the damaged spermatozoa. So the dead and damaged spermatozoa are removed by the epidermis. Then stores the spermatozoa up to 2 weeks, almost 14 days, to allow for physiological maturation of the sperms. So even though the sperms are produced in the testis, they are not still mature. So they mature in the epidermis. That's why it is kept here for almost 14 days before they are released. Okay, so these are some of the functions of the epidermis. One is it secretes and absorbs the nourishing fluid. Second, it recycles the damaged spermatozoa. That is, it will remove all the dead and damaged spermatozoa. Then the third is it keeps the sperms for 2 weeks so that there can be maturation of the physiological maturation of the sperms. Okay. Now coming to the vas deferens. So we have studied the testis, we have studied the epidermis. Now we'll see this long duct called as the vas deferens, or also I said it is also called as the ductus deferens. Both are same. Okay. So it is a muscular tube almost 45 centimeters long. Long tube carries sperms from the epidermis to the pelvis. If you can see here, this is the scrotum within which the testis is there. Now it is carrying the sperms from the scrotum all the way back into the pelvis. The lower part of the abdomen, this is called as the pelvis, and it is going into the pelvis. Okay. Passes through the inguinal canal as one of the contents of the spermatic cord. It passes through a canal called as the inguinal canal, very important. Okay, that you'll study again later. It joins the duct of the seminal vesicles to form the ejaculatory duct. Now, if you see here, this vas deferens will come here and joins with the duct of the vas deferens. This is the seminal vesicle. So this is the vas deferens and this is the seminal vesicle joined together. Both these ducts joined together, and it is this now this duct is called as the ejaculatory duct. Ejaculatory duct, which will open into the urethra, prostatic urethra. This is the prostate, and the part of the urethra passing through the prostate is called as the prostatic urethra. This is the bladder here, and the urine is passing through here. And this is the prostate, and this is the ejaculatory duct, and the sperms from here they will pour into the urethra. Okay, so it will be open into the prostatic urethra. That is the ejaculatory duct. Now coming to the accessory glands. Accessory glands. So accessory glands, what are accessory glands? They are nothing but the additional glands which will help the main organ, that is the testis. So what are these accessory glands? One is the seminal vesicle, second is prostate, and the third is the bulbourethral or Cooper's gland. So what is the function of these accessory gland? Why they are present? One is it will secrete the seminal fluid. Seminal fluid. So there is a fluid which is secreted, and major quantity comes from the seminal vesicle. That's why it is called as seminal fluid. Even though prostate and bulbourethral gland also produce, but this is fluid is called as seminal fluid because main content will be coming from the seminal vesicle. So there is these organs will produce the seminal fluid. Then what is the function of this seminal fluid? It will nourish and activation of the sperms. So this fluid will help in the assure that they are well nourished, the sperms are well nourished, as well as they are become active, well active, okay, after nourishment. The third is it helps in the protection of the sperms. Sperms, because they are floating within this fluid, they are protected from any damages, any kind of damage. Okay, so these are three important functions. One is secretion of the seminal fluid, second nourishing and activation of the sperms, and the third is the protection of the sperms. Now coming to the prostate gland. So just below the bladder, this is the urinary bladder. Just below that, there is a triangular shaped organ called as the prostate. This is the prostate. This is the side view. This is the front view, and this is the cross section. If you take cross section like this is how it looks like. This is the prostate with the glandular part. And here you can see this is the bladder, and this is the urethra passing. And here is the bladder, and you can see the urethra passing. Okay, this is called as the prostatic urethra. The urethra passing through the prostate, that is called as prostatic urethra. So now we are talking about this prostate gland. Prostate gland, this is the largest male accessory gland. So this is the largest male accessory gland. Okay, it is a fibromuscular glandular tissue. Very important, fibromuscular, because later if you see in the pathology, you will study that this fibromuscular glandular tissue has the capacity to hypertrophy, and it leads to a lot of complications in the elderly. Okay, then the size, it is almost walnut size. This prostate almost the size of the walnut. Site, it is located at the neck of the bladder. Bladder is here, the neck of the bladder is below. Usually neck means we think it is above, but here in case of bladder, it is neck of bladder is here. Just below the neck of the bladder is the prostate. Okay, it is traversed by the prostatic urethra. So through this prostate, you can see the traversing or the passage of the prostatic urethra. And this will secrete almost 20 to 30% of the seminal fluid. Even though this is the largest of the accessory gland, but it will be secreting only 20 to 30% of the seminal fluid. And the shape is almost pyramidal or conical in shape. As you can see here, it looks like a pyramid or the cone. Coming to the functions, it secretes enzymes which have the following functions. So it will be secreting some enzymes which will aid in activating the sperm motility. So the prostatic secretions are very important for the activation of the sperms. Then the mucus degradation. So all the mucus part is removed so that there can be fertility, as well as neutralizing the acidity of the female reproductive tract. So the sperms, once they enter the female reproductive tract, so the female reproductive tract is actually acidic. So to neutralize this, prostate will produce a secretion which will be basic in nature, and it will try to neutralize the acidity of the female reproductive tract. If not, the sperms will die. So this secretion will actually neutralize so that these sperms can be alive. So it is, this fluid will be almost alkaline in nature so that it can neutralize the acidity of female reproductive tract. Now coming to the last part, that is the penis. So this is the copulatory organ as well as the excretory organ. So it does two functions in case of male, copulation as well as the excretion. So the excretory part, it will be through the penile urethra, which will again does two functions. It will transmit the urine as well as the seminal fluid. So this urethra, so if you can see here, this is the cross section. If you take cross section of this, so you can see here, this is the urethra, spongy urethra. This is the urethra here, which will carry both the urine as well as the seminal fluid. For the copulation, there are three cylindrical masses here. Has three cylindrical masses of erectile tissue, which will help in erection. Two are corpora cavernosa. If you see here, these are called as the corpora cavernosa on either side. So these will be filled with blood, and that's why the penis becomes rigid and help in copulation. So these are called as the corpus cavernosum. Okay. Then below we have the one single mass. This is the one mass. This is called as the corpus spongiosum. This doesn't become erectile. This is non-erectile tissue. So the urethra passes through this. Okay. So these are the two corpus cavernosa, and below we have the corpus spongiosum. This is the cross section of the penis. Now going to the female reproductive system. If you have any doubts still here, you can ask me. Any doubts regarding the male reproductive system, you can ask me. Okay, if you don't have, we'll go to the next part, that is the female reproductive system. Okay, so if you study the pelvis of the female reproductive system will be present here. So this is the same area where we are studying this. So if you see here, this is the uterus, and this is the vagina here, and here you can see these are the fallopian tubes, and here is the ovary. So the components of the female reproductive tract will be consisting of two parts, internal genitalia as well as the external genitalia. Internal genitalia are those organs that are within the true pelvis, not like in case of male outside the pelvis in the scrotum, but all the organs are present within the pelvis in case of the female. These include the vagina. So here is the vagina here. Then we have the cervix. This part is called as cervix, and the upper part, this is called as the uterus. Vagina, cervix, uterus. Then we have the uterine tubes. These are called as uterine tubes, or they are also called as fallopian tubes, or sometimes also called as the oviduct. Everything is same. Uterine tubes, oviduct, or fallopian tubes. Then we have, finally we have the most important organ, that is the primary organ in case of female. These are the ovaries. Then going to the external genitalia lies outside the true pelvis, okay, which is also called as the vulva. Okay, these include the perineum, mons pubis, clitoris, urethral meatus, labia majora, minora, vestibule, greater vestibular, battling glands, skinny glands, and periurethral area. All these you will again study when you go to the urogenital system. Right now we'll be studying about mainly about the female reproductive tract organs, that is the internal genitalia. Now coming to the main primary organ, just like in case of male, that is the testis, in the female it will be the ovaries, which are the main primary organs in case of female. These are the blue colored structures on either side. These are the ovaries on either side. It is also almond shaped, very similar to that of the outside appearance, looks same, and even the size is almost same, 4 into 2 centimeters. And but this will lie in the pelvis. In case of male, it will be in the scrotum, but in case of female, it will be in the pelvis in a depression called as the ovarian fossa. Behind that, this peritoneal fold will form a fossa called as the ovarian fossa. Coming to the functions, the main function will be production of the female germ cell, that is called as the oogenesis. Just like in case of testis, it is the spermatogenesis. In case of female, it will be the oogenesis. Okay, or the production of the female germ cells. Then, just like in case of male, there is production of hormone, that is the testosterone. Similarly, in case of female, there is secretion of the female sex hormones, that is the estrogen as well as the progesterone, which is produced in the ovaries. Okay. Now coming to the blood supply. So the blood supply is by the, if you see here, these are the ovaries on either side, and they are supplied by the similar arteries like in case of male. In case of testis, it is the testicular artery. In case of the female, it will be the ovarian arteries. So you can see here similarly from the abdominal aorta on either side, the ovarian arteries are coming and supplying the ovaries. Coming to the venous drainage, so the ovarian vein. So similar to that of in case of male, the ovarian vein on the right side will drain into the inferior vena cava, and on the left side it will drain into the left renal vein. Very similar to that of the, if you study the testis, it is very easy to study the ovary also, because most of the features are similar to that of the testis. Okay, except the structure, which will study the structure in the histology. Okay. So the right vein will drain on into the inferior vena cava, left vein drains into the left renal vein. Coming to the lymphatic drainage, it is similar to that of the testis, that is the para-aortic group of lymph nodes, and the nerve supply will be from the aortic plexus. Now going to the next structure after the ovary, once this ovum is released from here, it will pass through this long duct. This is called as the uterine tubes, fallopian tubes, or oviduct. These are the tubes on either side. So these are 10 centimeter long. Okay. It is enclosed in the upper border of broad ligament of uterus. There is a long peritoneal fold called as this is called as the broad ligament, which will cover this whole of this gland, these tubes on either side. So they will present on the top of this broad ligament. So this tube is divided into four parts. One is called as the infundibulum, the part which is funnel shape and which has finger-like projections here. These are called as fimbriae. Okay, these are called as fimbriae, finger-like projections. So this is called as the infundibulum. It looks like a funnel, so it is called as infundibulum. Then the most important part will be the ampulla. If you see here, this long part, this is called as the ampulla. This is the site where the actual fertilization will takes place. The sperm will enter the vagina through the uterus, then enter the fallopian tubes and come here. And the ovum will be released from the ovary and enter the fallopian tubes, come to the ampulla, and here will be the fertilization. So the ampulla is a very important part because this is the most dilated part of the fallopian tubes, and it will be the site for the fertilization of the sperm and the ovum together. Then we have a narrow part. This is called as the isthmus. And the last part, which is passing through a thick wall of the uterus, that is called as the very short part here, that will be called as the intramural part. So these are the four parts of the uterine tubes. Now coming to the functions, what is the function of the fallopian tubes? So these tubes will transport the ovum into the uterus. Okay, first they will transport the ovum from the ovary to the ampulla, and they will transport the sperm to the ampulla, and then it is also helpful because this is the site of fertilization. Okay, so one of the most important function of the fallopian tubes is the site of fertilization of the ovum takes place here in the ampulla, as well as the fertilized egg will be carried to this same tube back into the uterus. Now coming to the second important organ and the third important, we studied the ovary, then the fallopian tubes. Now we are studying the uterus. Uterus, if you see here, there is the uterus here. It is a hollow pear-shaped muscular organ. As you can see here, a big cavity. Big cavity is there. So it is hollow and it looks like a pear-shaped muscular organ because it has a thick muscle. If you can see here, there is a thick muscle. So this uterus will be very small in case of the nulliparous. What do you mean by nulliparous? Young nulliparous who has not given birth to any children or child. Okay, so such kind of lady is called as nulliparous. In those, this will measure only 3 into 2 into 1 centimeter or inches. 3 into 2 into 1 inch. Okay, the length will be 3 inches. the breadth will be 2 inches and the thickness will be 1 inch. But it has the capacity, once there is fertilization, it has the capacity, as I said, all the organs will be in the pelvis. Now, after fertilization, this has the capacity to expand to a very large extent, and it goes up to the abdomen and covers most of the abdominal cavity. So this organ that is called as the uterus has a very unique way of expanding, especially during pregnancy. Okay, so this is the uterus. So this uterus is divided into 3 parts: the fundus, body, and the cervix. If you see here, these are the fallopian tubes on either side. When they open here, whatever is above that, this is called as the fundus of the uterus. Fundus, whatever is above the opening of the fallopian tube, that is called as fundus. The remaining part here, this is called as the body, and the lowermost part, this is called as the cervix. Cervix. Okay, so these are the 3 parts of the uterus: fundus, body, and the cervix. The usual position of the uterus is anteverted, anteflexed. If you see here, so this is the normal position of the uterus. This is very important because if it changes this position, then it can lead to infertility. So this looks very abnormal, but this is the normal position for the uterus. If you see here, this is the uterus, this is the cervix, and this is the vagina. Okay. So this is called as anteverted anteflex. So what do you mean by anteverted anteflex? If you see here, the angulation between the vagina and the cervix. So this is called as the angle of anteversion. It is 90 degrees. The vagina and the cervix are at 90 degrees. That is called as the angle of anteversion. Okay. Then the angulation between the cervix and the body of the uterus. This is the long axis. This is called as long axis of the body of uterus and the cervix. It will be almost an obtuse angle, more than 90 degree, less than 180 degree. That is called as obtuse. So this is called as angle of anteflexion. Anteflexion. So anteverted, the long axis of the whole uterus is bent forward on the long axis of the vagina. This is the vagina and the cervix. Then the anteflexion. So this is the anteflexion. The long axis of the body of the uterus. This is the long axis of the body of the uterus. Is bent forward on the long axis of the cervix. This is the cervix. So this is called as the anteflexion. So this is the normal position. So it is called as, the usual position of the uterus is anteverted anteflex. Okay. Now coming to the blood supply of the uterus, it is supplied by a very tortuous artery called as the uterine artery. If you see here, so this is the uterine artery here. This is the artery coming here and going in 2 branches, up above and below, and it becomes very tortuous. If you see here, it is so tortuous. Okay, so this is because the uterus has the capacity to expand, but not the arteries. So when it expands, this should be able to still give blood supply to the uterus. If it is just straight, then it will break. So this is very tortuous, so that it can supply the whole of the uterus. So this is called as the uterine arteries. It is present on both the sides. They have shown only on the one side, but it will be present on both the sides, right and left. Then the venous drainage will be from the Pampaniform plexus. If you remember, Pampaniform plexus was around the testis. Similarly, here also you can see here there is plexus of veins, lot of plexus of veins, all joined together to drain into the uterine vein. So they form a Pampaniform plexus from where they drain into the uterine vein. Finally, we coming to the cervix and the vagina. The lowermost part, that is, this is the cervix, and below this is the vagina. So first we will study the cervix. So if you can see here, there is a small cavity within the cervix. This is called as the cervical canal. It communicates with the cavity of the body through the internal os, and with that of the vagina through the external os. If you see here, this is the cavity of cervix called as cervical canal. So it opens into the body of the uterus through internal os and outside into the vagina through the external os. Internal os and external os. So this is how so the cervix is between the internal os to the external os to the internal os. Okay, this is the cervix. Now coming to the final part, that is the vagina here. So this is the vagina. So it is a fibromuscular tube. The extent from the external os to open into the ula. So it opens from the external, this is externals, and outside opens into the ula, which is called as the female external genitalia. Coming to the functions, what is the function of this vagina? It is a copulatory organ in case of female, as well as it is also the birth canal through which the fetus, which will develop here, then it will come out through this vagina. Okay, so this is both an copulatory organ as well as the birth canal. Finally, coming to the ligaments which will be holding the uterus, I showed you it is in this angulation. Okay, so how this is held in its position? This is by uterine and cervical ligaments. Uterine and cervical ligament. There are three ligaments important. One is called as the broad ligament. This blue colored structure. This is called as the broad ligament of the uterus. Broad ligament of the uterus. Then we have the round ligament. So if you see here, this is called as the round ligament of uterus. And then we have the third called as the ovarian ligament. Ovarian ligament. If you see here, this is the ovarian ligament on either side. This is the ovarian ligament, the round ligament, and here it will be present on both the sides. This is called as the broad ligament. So these are the three important ligaments which you should know, which are present along with the female reproductive system. So this is all about this lecture. If you have any doubts regarding any part of the anatomy of the male or the female reproductive system, you can ask me. Any doubts?
No, thank you, doctor.
Everything is clear?
Thank you, doctor. Everything is clear.